My name is Hannah, I'm 24 years old, and I've always been the quiet one in my family. The one who kept her head down, worked hard, and never asked for much. Maybe that's why everyone thought they could walk all over me. But they were wrong. It all started 2 months ago, when my sister, Melissa, announced she was getting married. The whole family was thrilled, and I tried to be too, even though I knew how much my mom favored her. Melissa had always been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. I didn't mind that much, until my mom decided that my life wasn't as important as her wedding. For years, I had been saving money from my job at the diner, stashing away every dollar I could. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I dreamed of using it to go back to school, or maybe just have a safety net so I wouldn't feel like I was drowning every month. But one morning, I logged into my bank account and saw that nearly all of it, $12,000 I had worked so hard for, was gone. I thought it had to be some kind of mistake. I called the bank, and that's when they told me, "Your mother has access to this account, right?" My stomach dropped. When I confronted her, she didn't even look ashamed. She just said, "Melissa needs this more than you do. She's starting a family. You'll understand one day." I wanted to scream, but all I managed was, "That was my money." Her reply? "Don't be selfish, Hannah. You should be grateful you can help your sister." As if that wasn't enough, a week later, she came into my room and said, "You should sell your car too. Melissa's honeymoon isn't fully paid for." That was when something inside me broke. And for the first time in my life, I said no. The word no felt strange on my tongue, like it didn't even belong to me. But when I said it, I saw something flash in my mom's eyes, shock, then fury. "What did you just say?" she snapped, as if I had cursed at her. "I said no," I repeated, steady this time. "I'm not selling my car." Her face twisted in anger. "Ungrateful. That's what you are. After all I've done for you, after everything I sacrificed, this is how you repay me?" I almost laughed. What had she ever sacrificed for me? For as long as I could remember, Melissa got the new clothes, the private dance lessons, the support. I got hand-me-downs, lectures, and silence. Still, I stood my ground. "That car is mine. I worked for it. You can call me ungrateful, but I'm not giving it up." She stormed out, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. For the next 2 weeks, she barely spoke to me, except when she needed something. Melissa, of course, didn't apologize. She just looked at me with that smug smile she'd worn since we were kids, like she knew she would always win. But then, 2 weeks later, everything changed. I came home from work and found my mom sitting at the kitchen table, her hands shaking as she clutched a stack of papers. Her face was pale, her eyes red. Melissa was crying on the couch, mascara streaking down her cheeks. "What's going on?" I asked carefully. My mom looked up at me, her voice breaking. I lost everything. The house, the savings, all of it. The money's gone." Melissa wailed louder. "What are we supposed to do now, Mom?" I just stood there, my heart pounding, but not from shock. Because I already knew. I quietly said, "I know." Their heads snapped toward me, confusion written all over their faces. And that was the first time they realized I wasn't as naive as they thought. The silence that followed my words was thick. My mom's mouth opened and closed like she wanted to speak, but no sound came out. Melissa sat forward, her eyes narrowed. "What do you mean you know?" she demanded, her voice sharp. I pulled out a chair and sat across from my mom. For the first time in years, I felt like I was the one in control. "Because I've been watching," I said quietly. "I noticed the overdue notices in the mail. The credit card bills piling up. The calls you'd silence as soon as I walked into the room. You weren't as careful as you thought." My mom's face drained of color. "I didn't say anything at first," I continued, "because I wanted to see how far you'd take it. I wanted to see if you'd really put Melissa's wedding ahead of me, ahead of our stability. And you did. You didn't just steal my savings, you gambled everything on her big day. And now look where it got you. Melissa jumped up, furious. Don't you dare blame Mom. She was trying to help me. You're just jealous. Jealous? I cut her off. Of what? Watching my mother throw away her future to fund your fairy tale? No, Melissa. I'm not jealous. I'm disgusted. Mom finally spoke, her voice small. I thought I could fix it before anyone noticed. I thought I could borrow a little here, shuffle some money there, and no one would ever know. But then the stock I invested in tanked. I thought it would double, but it's gone. I stared at her, every ounce of pity drained from me. You gambled with my money. With the roof over our heads. And now you want sympathy? Neither of them spoke. The weight of their choices hung heavy in the room. Inside, though, I was already planning my next move. They thought I'd sit quietly and pick up the pieces. But this time, I wasn't going to be their doormat. That night, I lay awake in my room, staring at the ceiling, my mind buzzing. For most of my life, I had been the quiet one, the easy child. The one Mom could overlook and Melissa could mock without consequence. But they had taken too much from me. My savings, my trust, my respect. Now, they were broke and desperate. And that desperation was exactly what I could use. The first step was simple: distance myself. I stopped eating dinner with them. I stopped offering rides when Melissa's fiancé didn't pick her up. When Mom asked me to help with groceries, I shrugged and said, I don't have the money. The truth was, I did. I still had my car, and I had opened a separate savings account months ago when I first noticed money missing. That account had about $4,000 in it, hidden away where Mom couldn't touch it. But they didn't know that. The second step was information. I dug deeper into Mom's finances. I remembered her online banking password. She used Melissa's birthday for everything. One late night, while she slept, I logged in. What I found was worse than I expected: maxed out credit cards, payday loans, and even a second mortgage she had taken out secretly. She wasn't just broke, she was drowning. And then I saw it: she had co-signed Melissa's wedding loan, putting the house as collateral. It was like a spark lit inside me. They had tied themselves together so tightly that when one went down, they both would. The third step was patience. I started documenting everything: bank statements, overdue notices, even texts from my mom begging for money. I kept them all on a hidden flash drive. Because when the time came, I wanted proof. I wanted them exposed for what they really were. And as I stared at Melissa the next morning, watching her complain about how unfair life was while sipping the last of my mom's coffee, I realized something. My revenge wasn't just about getting even. It was about finally making them see me. The next week, things in the house felt different. The tension was thick, and every day brought some new crisis. A past due notice taped to the front door. A phone call from the bank. Melissa crying about her fiancé getting cold feet now that the money was gone. And me? I just watched it all unfold. One evening, Mom cornered me in the kitchen. Her hair was unkempt, her eyes bloodshot. She looked older than I'd ever seen her. Hannah, she whispered, like she was ashamed to even ask, do you have anything saved up? Anything at all? We could really use your help right now. I leaned back against the counter, arms crossed. You mean after you drained my savings for Melissa's wedding? No, Mom. I don't have anything. The lie slipped out so easily. Melissa walked in just in time to hear it. God, you're so selfish, she snapped. We're a family, Hannah. Families help each other. I turned slowly to face her. Funny. When I worked doubles and saved every penny, was anyone helping me? When you needed a dream wedding, you didn't ask, you took. And now you want me to clean up the mess? No. The look on her face was priceless. For once, Melissa didn't have a quick comeback. Later that night, I made my move. While they argued in the living room, I slipped into Mom's bedroom and carefully pulled open her desk drawer. The overdue mortgage notice was sitting right on top. Perfect. I folded it neatly and tucked it into my bag. The next day at work, I called a lawyer my coworker had recommended months ago when I'd first mentioned my mom taking my savings. We set up a meeting. If Mom thought she could legally tie me into her debts, she was dead wrong. And if Melissa thought she'd walk away untouched, she was in for a surprise too. Every step I took now was deliberate. Slow. Precise. Because revenge, I realized, wasn't about striking fast. It was about letting them destroy themselves, and making sure everyone saw it happen. The law office was small, tucked between a bakery and an insurance agency downtown. I almost turned back when I stood in front of the door, but something inside me kept pushing forward. I wasn't here for them anymore, I was here for me. The lawyer's name was Mr. Adams, a calm, middle-aged man with silver hair and sharp eyes that seemed to read me instantly. He listened patiently as I laid everything out, the stolen savings, the drained accounts, the wedding loans, the second mortgage. I slid the overdue notice across his desk, along with the bank statements I had copied onto the flash drive. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. "You've been smart, Hannah. Very smart. Most people don't think to document things the way you did. That gives you options." "Options?" I asked, my voice tight. He nodded. "First, you're not responsible for any of your mother's debts unless your name is on them. From what I see here, she's co-signed everything with your sister, but not you. That means legally, you're safe." I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. "But," he continued, "if they default on these loans, the bank could repossess the house. You live there, correct?" "Yes." "Then you'll need to prepare. If the foreclosure goes through, you could be out on the street with them. Unless," his eyes flicked to the papers again, "you decide to take legal action for the theft of your savings. That would establish you as a victim, not a participant. It could also protect your credit from any fallout." The thought of suing my mom made my stomach twist. But then I remembered her words, "Melissa needs this more than you do." I clenched my fists. "What happens if I do?" Mr. Adams gave me a small, knowing smile. "Then the courts will see the truth. That your mother betrayed you. And your sister benefited from it. You'd be free of their mess, and they'd be left to face the consequences." I walked out of that office with my heart pounding and a folder full of paperwork. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid. I had a way out. And better yet, I had a way to make them finally face the wreckage they created. Over the next 2 weeks, I lived 2 separate lives. By day, I was the same quiet daughter my mom thought she knew, working my shifts, keeping to myself, barely speaking at the dinner table. By night, I was something else entirely. I spread out papers across my desk, highlighting loan details, saving copies of text messages, and drafting statements for the lawyer. Melissa noticed the change first. One night, as she was pacing the living room on the phone with her fiancé, she caught me walking past with a folder in my arms. "What's that?" she asked, suspicion in her voice. "Work stuff," I lied smoothly, and slipped into my room before she could press further. In reality, that folder contained a draft of my complaint, theft and misappropriation of funds. My mom's name sat in bold print across the top, with Melissa listed under beneficiary. Seeing their names there felt surreal. But it also felt right. I didn't hate them. Not really. But I wasn't going to let them drag me down anymore. The cracks between them were already widening without my help. Melissa and her fiancé had broken up. He didn't want to be tied to her debt, and he wasn't shy about saying so. I overheard the screaming match through her bedroom door. The next morning, Melissa was gone for hours, and when she came back, her mascara was smeared, her engagement ring missing. Mom, meanwhile, was unraveling. She snapped at me over little things. dirty dishes, lights left on, even when I hadn't done them. I could see the desperation in her eyes. She wanted me to swoop in, like I always had, and bail her out. But not this time. One night, I sat across from her at the kitchen table. She was holding another past due notice, her hands trembling. "Mom," I said softly, "you need to face the truth. You did this. You took everything, and now it's gone. You can't expect me to fix it." Her eyes filled with tears. "You don't understand, Hannah. I thought I was helping. I thought if Melissa had her dream wedding, things would be different." I stood up and gathered my things, keeping my voice calm. "No, Mom. You weren't helping. You were choosing her over me. Like you always have." She didn't stop me when I walked away. And that night, I emailed Mr. Adams. "I'm ready to file." Filing the lawsuit was oddly anticlimactic. I met Mr. Adams at his office, signed the final papers, and watched as his assistant carried them off to be processed. That was it. My name was on one side. My mother's was on the other. Melissa's sat neatly beneath, beneficiary of stolen funds. Walking out of the office, I felt lighter. But I knew the storm was coming. It arrived 3 days later. I was sitting on the couch, sipping tea after work, when Mom burst through the front door, clutching a thick envelope in her hands. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with fury. "What the hell is this?" she screamed, slamming the papers down on the coffee table. Melissa appeared from the hallway, confused, and picked them up. As her eyes scanned the pages, her face turned red. You sued us?" I didn't move. I didn't flinch. "Yes. I did." Mom's voice cracked. "How could you do this to your own family? After everything. After everything you did," I cut her off. My voice was calm, steady, stronger than I'd ever heard it before. "You stole from me, Mom. You took the future I'd worked for and handed it to Melissa like I didn't matter. You gambled with my money, with our home, with everything, and you lost. This is the only way I protect myself from the mess you created." Melissa's hands shook as she dropped the papers back onto the table. "You're pathetic, Hannah. You'll regret this. No one's going to take your side." I leaned forward, meeting her glare. "Maybe not. But the courts will. I have proof. Texts. Bank records. Everything." The room went silent. For once, neither of them had anything to say. Mom sank into a chair, burying her face in her hands. Melissa stormed off, slamming her bedroom door so hard the walls rattled. And me? I just sat there, sipping my tea, while the sound of my own heartbeat echoed in my ears. For the first time in years, I wasn't the quiet one anymore. I was the one with the power. The first court date came quicker than I expected. I sat outside the courthouse in my car, clutching a folder of documents Mr. Adams had helped me organize. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from adrenaline. This wasn't just about money anymore, this was about being heard. When I walked inside, I spotted them immediately. Mom looked tired, her clothes wrinkled, her makeup smudged from crying. Melissa, on the other hand, strutted in with her arms crossed, glaring at me like she was about to win a war. She didn't even acknowledge me when we sat on opposite sides of the courtroom. The judge entered, and suddenly everything felt real. Mr. Adams presented my case first: the stolen savings, the unauthorized withdrawals, the receipts and text messages where Mom admitted she used my money for Melissa's wedding. He spoke calmly, methodically, laying out every piece of evidence like puzzle pieces fitting together. I kept my eyes on the judge, but I could feel Mom shrinking beside her lawyer. When it was their turn, Mom's attorney tried to spin it. "This was not theft, Your Honor. This was a family matter. A misunderstanding. Mrs. Daniels," he gestured toward my mom, "believed she was acting in her daughter's best interest, supporting her other child during a significant life event. The judge's expression didn't change. Melissa couldn't stay quiet. She stood up suddenly, her voice rising. She's just jealous. Hannah's always been bitter because Mom loves me more, and now she's trying to ruin our lives. The judge banged his gavel. Ms. Daniels, sit down or you will be removed from this courtroom. I'll never forget the look on Melissa's face as she sank back into her chair, her arrogance crumbling for the first time. By the end of the session, the judge granted a temporary order. Mom couldn't touch any shared accounts until the case was resolved. It was a small win, but it was mine. As we filed out of the courtroom, Mom wouldn't look at me. Melissa hissed under her breath, "You'll regret this, Hannah. You're nothing without us." I stopped, turned, and met her glare head-on. "No, Melissa. For the first time in my life, I'm finally free from you." The weeks that followed were brutal, for them, not me. Discovery began, which meant both sides had to hand over financial documents. Mr. Adams had already prepared everything on my end, my pay stubs, my bank statements, even proof of when the money first disappeared. Meanwhile, Mom and Melissa scrambled. Their lawyers demanded records, but half of them were missing, and the ones they did produce painted an ugly picture: payday loans, credit card balances maxed to the limit, overdraft fees piling up. Every day, I received updates from Mr. Adams. And every day, I felt stronger. At night, I'd hear Mom on the phone, her voice cracking as she begged creditors for extensions. Melissa, meanwhile, was losing friends left and right. Word about her broken engagement and the lawsuit had spread around town. People who used to fawn over her now whispered behind her back. One evening, as I was making dinner for myself, Melissa stormed into the kitchen. "You think you've won, don't you?" she snapped, her eyes wild. I set down my fork and looked at her evenly. "I don't think anything. I just know I'm not going to be your scapegoat anymore." She sneered. "You've always been jealous of me." "Always." "Well, enjoy your little victory, Hannah, because when this is over, you'll still be alone." I almost laughed. Better alone than used. Her face twisted, and she stormed out, slamming the door. That night, I added the interaction to my journal, a record I kept of every insult, every manipulation. It wasn't part of the lawsuit, but it was for me. Proof that I wasn't crazy. That I had endured years of this and survived. Then came the breakthrough. Mr. Adams called one morning with a tone of satisfaction in his voice. "Hannah, we've uncovered something. Your mother didn't just drain your savings, she forged your signature on one of the withdrawal slips. That's fraud. If we present this, she won't just lose the case, she could face criminal charges." I froze, the weight of his words settling over me. Fraud. Criminal charges. I had wanted revenge, yes. But this was bigger than I imagined. And for the first time, I realized, this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about justice. When Mr. Adams told me about the forged signature, I sat frozen in my chair, my phone pressed to my ear. For years, I had wanted Mom to see me, to acknowledge the damage she caused. But criminal charges? That was a line I never thought I'd have to cross. Do I have to press charges?" I asked quietly. "No," he said. "The court could still rule in your favor based on theft alone. But if you pursue the forgery, it becomes criminal. That means jail time is on the table." Jail. My mom in an orange jumpsuit. The image made my stomach twist, but then another one followed, me sitting at the diner for double shifts, counting crumpled dollar bills, while Mom funneled every dime I earned into Melissa's perfect wedding. Melissa walking down the aisle in a designer gown bought with my sacrifices. Mom smiling proudly beside her, while I sat in the shadows like I didn't exist. My hand clenched into a fist. "She knew what she was doing," I said firmly. "She didn't just steal, she tried to erase me from my own money. She doesn't get to walk away from that." Mr. Adams paused, then said, "I'll file the motion." The next hearing was brutal. The forged slip was presented, and Mom's face went white as the judge examined it. Her lawyer stammered excuses. Maybe it was a mistake, maybe Hannah signed and forgot, but the handwriting expert tore that apart in seconds. It was forgery, plain and simple. Melissa lost it right there in court. She was just trying to help me, she shouted, tears streaming down her face. Why can't you get over yourself, Hannah? You've always been selfish. The judge banged the gavel for order, but I didn't even flinch. I just looked at her and said, calmly, I'm done being your doormat. The judge set the next date for sentencing. Yes, sentencing. My mom was officially facing criminal charges. That night, the house was silent. Mom stayed in her room, and Melissa locked herself in hers. For once, it was peaceful. I sat at the kitchen table, sipping tea, feeling the weight of what I'd done. Revenge wasn't supposed to feel this heavy. But it also wasn't supposed to feel this freeing. The house changed after that court date. It wasn't home anymore, it was a waiting room for disaster. Mom barely left her bedroom. When she did, she looked hollow, her hair unbrushed, her eyes swollen from crying. She didn't yell at me anymore. She didn't even look at me. And honestly, that silence was louder than any argument we'd ever had. Melissa, on the other hand, turned meaner. She would slam doors, stomp around the house, and mutter insults under her breath whenever I passed. Backstabber, snake, traitor. She even started leaving dirty dishes in front of my door, like some twisted way of punishing me. One night, she finally snapped. She burst into my room without knocking, her face blotchy from tears and rage. You're destroying her, she screamed. She's your mother, Hannah. Do you even care what happens to her? I looked at her calmly. Did she care what happened to me when she emptied my account? When she forged my name? When she told me I was selfish for not selling my car? Melissa's jaw trembled. That was different. No, I said firmly. That was exactly the same. She chose you, Melissa. Every single time. And now she has to face the consequences of her choices. For once, Melissa didn't have a comeback. She just glared at me with pure hatred before slamming my door so hard the picture frame on the wall rattled. The next morning, I overheard her on the phone with someone, probably a friend she hadn't lost yet. If Mom goes to jail, it'll be Hannah's fault. She's doing this to punish us. She's always been jealous. I didn't even bother to respond. Let her talk. Let her spin whatever story made her feel better. Because in 2 weeks, the judge would decide Mom's fate. And this time, it wasn't up to Melissa's tears or Mom's excuses. It was up to the law. I thought I'd feel guilty as the sentencing date drew closer. But instead, I felt something else. Relief. Like I was finally stepping out from a shadow I'd lived under my whole life. The morning of sentencing, the air felt heavy, like the world itself was holding its breath. I sat in the courthouse hallway with Mr. Adams beside me, my folder of documents clutched in my lap even though I knew I wouldn't need them today. Everything was already in the judge's hands. When Mom arrived, Melissa was with her, practically dragging her down the hall. Mom looked like she hadn't slept in weeks. Her skin was pale, her hands shaking. Melissa's expression, however, was pure venom. She locked eyes with me, and I swear if looks could kill, I'd be on the floor. Inside the courtroom, the tension was unbearable. The judge began by reviewing the charges: theft, misappropriation, and most damning of all, fraud. Each word was like a hammer striking. Mom's lawyer begged for leniency. She is a mother who made poor choices out of love for her child, he argued. She regrets her actions deeply. Jail time would serve no purpose. Then the prosecutor spoke. Your Honor, this wasn't love. This was theft, deception, and fraud. She didn't just harm her daughter financially, she betrayed her trust. Actions have consequences, and this court must uphold that. Finally, the judge turned to me. Miss Hannah, would you like to make a statement before sentencing? My heart pounded, but I stood. My voice was steady. For years, I was invisible in my family. Everything I did, everything I saved, was taken for granted, or worse, taken from me. This wasn't about love. This was about control. My mother stole from me, erased me, and told me I should be grateful for it. I don't hate her, but I refuse to let her choices define me anymore. I deserve better. And I hope today shows her that I won't be silenced again. The courtroom was silent. The judge nodded slowly, then turned back to Mom. Mrs. Daniels, I hereby sentence you to 6 months in county jail, with the possibility of early release for good behavior, and full restitution of the stolen funds to your daughter. Melissa gasped. Mom let out a broken sob, covering her face with her hands. Me? I sat down, my chest rising with the first full breath I'd taken in years. It was over. Or so I thought. Because as we left the courtroom, Melissa hissed in my ear, her voice sharp and shaking with rage. This isn't over, Hannah. You'll pay for this. But for the first time in my life, her threats didn't scare me. They just sounded empty. The house was quieter without Mom, but not in a peaceful way. It felt hollow, like the walls themselves were waiting for something to snap. Melissa barely spoke to me at first. She sulked in her room, crying loudly enough to make sure I could hear, slamming doors every time she left the house. But within a few days, the silence gave way to something worse, rage. She cornered me in the kitchen one night, her face twisted with hate. You ruined everything, she spat. Mom's in jail because of you. Do you know how humiliated she is? How humiliated I am. I put down the dish I was washing and looked her dead in the eyes. No, Melissa. She's in jail because of what she did. She stole from me. She forged my name. She chose this path. She shoved a finger in my face. You could have stopped it. You didn't have to go this far. You just wanted to punish us. I stepped back, my voice cold. You're right. I did want to punish you. Because for once in my life, I deserved justice. And now I have it. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. She just glared at me, trembling with anger, before storming out. The next week was worse. She left passive-aggressive notes around the house, selfish. Traitor. Snake. She even scratched one onto the bathroom mirror with lipstick. I ignored her. She wanted me to react, to crumble the way I used to. But I didn't give her that satisfaction. Instead, I focused on rebuilding. I opened a new account, started saving again, and even looked into classes at the local community college. For the first time, my life felt like mine. But Melissa wasn't done. One night, I came home from work to find my car keyed from front to back, deep scratches gouged into the paint. My stomach dropped. I didn't need proof to know who did it. And as I stood there in the driveway, staring at the damage, I realized something important. Melissa wasn't just angry. She was dangerous. When I saw the damage to my car, a wave of anger rushed over me, but beneath it was something else. Clarity. Melissa was unraveling. And if I didn't act, she'd drag me down with her. The next morning, I filed a police report. I showed them the scratches, the neighbor's doorbell camera footage that conveniently caught Melissa pacing around my car late at night, and the notes she'd left in the house. The officer's expression said it all. They'd seen this kind of petty revenge spiral before. That was the beginning of the end for Melissa. 2 days later, she was served with a misdemeanor charge for vandalism. When she found out, she came storming into the kitchen, screaming, "You set me up." I didn't even flinch. No, Melissa. You set yourself up. You've spent your whole life thinking the world owed you something. Now, for once, you're paying for what you did. Her trial was smaller than Mom's, but the humiliation cut deeper. People whispered about her at the grocery store, at the salon, even at the cafe she used to brag about owning the room in. Her perfect image, shattered. And me? I moved out. I used part of the restitution the court ordered from Mom to put down a deposit on a small apartment. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. I painted the walls the color I wanted. I parked my car, repaired and shining, out front without fear of finding new scratches. When Mom was released early on good behavior, she tried calling me. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was shaky, full of apologies that came too late. Melissa didn't bother. The last I heard, she'd moved in with a friend, still bitter, still blaming everyone but herself. But me? I was free. I sat on my new couch one night, sipping tea in silence, and for the first time, the quiet wasn't heavy. It was peaceful. My revenge wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was simple. I took my life back. And in the end, that was the sweetest victory of all.